Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to Save Our Sisters Unplugged, where we empower, inspire, and we share stories to remind you that you are never alone in this journey of life. Today, we're in romantic, family, friendships, communication, because the truth is, communication isn't just about what we say, it's about how we learn to say it, what we don't say, and what we've been conditioned to avoid since childhood. And a lot of us are out here trying to love better without realizing we're still communicating from old wounds. I'm joined by Richard Morden, a high impact life, high impact divorce and life transformation who helps people rebuild divorce, loss, and major life transitions. Richard's work is deeply rooted in lived experience, healing, and helping people understand what's really driving their patterns, especially in relationships. He is the creator of the Crack Your Code personality test, which helps individuals and couples understand how they're wired, how their partner is wired, and why those differences can either create deeper connection or constant conflict. Welcome, Richard. It is such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Norine. I appreciate the opportunity. Just so clarify, I'm not the creator of this. I use this product. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I just want to
Well,
be
we
clear.
don't want to get in trouble.
No. I'm not. This is founded by Sherry Tree, who's a founder of Bank. So this again, I'm a consumer of the product, but I use it in my business life and my personal life, and I think it's helped me so much.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that. Because I think what you're doing is really good. I went ahead and took the test, but we'll get into that later on. Um, I want to just start with a few things. Let's start with your story. How did your experience with loss, divorce, and rebuilding shape the work that you do today?
Turning point for me was 2013. I lost my wife, passed away with a brain aneurysm, and I was just like I said, my kids were just coming out of high school, so I found emotional freedom technique at the same time. So I turned to that for some self care, and it wasn't conscious. I just knew I wanted to make sure I was in a good place to be dad and be who
Mm-hmm.
I need to be. So life changing decision. It really unfolded for me to do what I want to do. Looked after myself. I was able to be very, again, emotionally, mentally, physically available to my kids as they were finishing their careers, and I was closing in on my retirement for a company I work for. So life changing for me, life changing decision. I really unpacked my own journey because understanding for my life and many there was traumas in there I didn't even know existed. So
Mm,
having that uncovery, then becoming a practitioner, then spending a year of training with my still non coach and mentor who was a psychotherapist at the time as well as an EFT master trainer, and helped me really understand the journey of what emotional freedom technique and how important self-care is. And that's a priority in my life that I continue to not focus on, but I'm very conscious of my self-care for my path and conscious of that in my now relationship with my second wife. Again, so I wasn't divorced, but I widowed, but I my clients coming in were all divorced. So
okay.
grief and loss, things like that are similar. And as I work with, the divorced people and entrepreneurs, understanding that their journey, it's the pain point. We all have similar journeys in a sense, similar pains. Is where do I catch you in the pain point that you're looking for a change?
Now that's awesome. And you seem like you work with the entire spectrum, so that's really good. You're not focused on, well, did you say children too?
Not children, no. If I ever worked with a teen, a little bit, I want the adult nearby so they understand what the dialogue is. I will never work with a child on my own. There always has to be supervision there, but I've only worked with a couple. But again, the adult was in the room with them at the
Mm-hmm.
time, so there was supervision. But I prefer, I works online, so really at this point, adults only.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, when you start getting into, children, it starts to get a little complicated sometimes. So you'd be better off sticking with adults where they can, helping process their own feelings as you guys are going through everything.
And we let their inner child come out.
Exactly. Exactly. So when people hear the term healthy communication, what do you think they misunderstand about it?
Again, it's a box term like emotional intelligence. Sometimes it takes component. It's a number of components, but healthy in a sense of I'm going to simplify this. The five love languages have been out there for a long time. My current wife
Mhm.
and I have done that 3 or 4 times. Just the simplicity of what are my love languages and what am I trying to say? How am I trying to connect? And I think that's important when we have these dialogues and healthy communication in the sense of what am I trying to say and not be pulled back into my old triggers and stories. And you know what? It takes practice. It takes practice outside the moments of tension. People say, well, when tension, when you have the conflict, you do this. Well, if you haven't practiced it, you're not going to go to it. You're going to go to your default. So it takes time, effort, and conscious work to practice this so you can have the conversations that you need to in those moments of tension.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, I know I struggle with some of my communication, and I think I my communication style is pretty direct. Um, and as we probably will go on to see, my personality type um, is probably more logical than emotion based. And so that kind of gets me in a lot of trouble when I communicate because I'm thinking if I'm talking with an adult, I could say whatever, however, but that is not how we should be communicating. So I am learning and I'm glad that I have you on here because I would like to do better, with my communication. It is something that I've struggled with for a long time. And I think sometimes because I'm from a different culture, I am more aware of how I communicate. If I speak in my dialect, how are they going to take this? Are they going to understand what I'm saying? All those things is what I'm thinking about before I even say what I want to say.
I mean, communication is everywhere, and I think we've never had more access to it, and I don't think we've ever been more confused by it. So it's learning to, again, with this bank code process, it's there's lots of personality tests. This is not necessarily a personality test, but it is. There's hows, but this is the why.
Yeah.
This helps you understand why you think the way you do, why you're saying what you're saying. So it really gives that emotion behind it. So as they keep, in our training, keep saying it's not personal, it's personality.
Mm, I love that. I love that. It's not people generally take things personally. So,
We've been conditioned to.
yeah.
We've been conditioned to take it personally and be, in the sense of fragile in that sense. But when you understand, again, your how you see the world, how you speak of the world, and then perhaps someone else, again, it does open up the dialogue to say, oh, okay, I understand where they're coming from.
Mhm.
So now I can be more objective and not think they're just, I'm seeing it from this I. It's to what are we seeing it together?
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. So how do you think how does our childhood upbringing influence how we communicate in our adult relationships? Because I know a lot of folks say everything we experience in adulthood is stems from what we've experienced in childhood.
The 0 to 7 is the foundation, and that's pretty standard. What you see in the world, how you relate, how you connect, and that just sort of plays over and over until we, at some point, come to an awareness that we want something different. So that whether you had a voice as your child, whether you were able to be seen and heard, or were you in family dynamics that were very difficult. As we all, there's so many, I think that if you're familiar with the ACEs study, adverse childhood experiences, they give 10 examples of, traumatic upbringings that impact your adult life. So in truth, it has everything to do. But the simplicity of that is in the one called, it's now in a series called Predict My Future, when they really looked at the 4 types, the foundation of family is around the dinner table. If
Mhm.
the dinner table was warm, friendly, and supportive, those children grew up to be highly functional adults. in a nutshell. When the dinner table wasn't like that, there was a number of different dysfunctions that came from that. And you look at how fractured we are now. We don't have dinners together many times. We are eating different places. We're not having that connectivity. We're on our phones. So there's so many ways we're impacted more than ever, especially with technology and how we see ourselves and how we see the world. And, like many people, it's important to go back to the dinner table if you can and have those relationships over dinner.
Yeah. And I, to the point where you say, people aren't really out always at the dinner table. I mean, there's some people that eat in their room, some people are in their office, and then you have maybe one or two people at the dinner table. The connection isn't really there, so the communication could be lost. I know myself, we didn't grow up around the dinner table when I was growing up. I mean, we gathered for Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, and that was that was pretty much it. But for the rest of the time, like my parents would eat at their own in their own space, and then we would eat at the kids would eat at the table. So we didn't really have conversations with our parents like that. Does just as we're talking, I'm going back to my own childhood on how things work, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Because even with my kids now, I wanted us to all eat at the dinner table because I want to know what's going on in their day. I want to know who's saying what. I want to know how you're handling conflict. I want to know, who you're liking, who you're not liking, who's not liking you. I want to know everything that's going on in my kids' lives.
Yeah.
So I want to be there at the dinner table, unplugged, so we can talk about everything, and so I can actually really create that safe space for them to just tell me how they're feeling. Because I think in our childhoods, I think I mean, I would say my parents are boomers, um, and they didn't communicate that way. Most of them didn't communicate that way. And so I'm trying to break the cycle for my children because I want them to know who I am. So my parents didn't communicate like that. And it's only until I became an adult, I started asking them questions about who they are as people. Because that's what happens over the dinner table. You get to know who your parents are, you get to know their likes, their dislikes, how they grew up. But we didn't really have that connection. So I wanted to break the cycle for my children so that they would know who I am outside of being their mom, outside of being a disciplinarian. I wanted them to just see me and create that safe environment for them to tell me whatever is on their mind. You know what I mean?
Well, as being boomers too, we were the children after the wars. And for many people that had, two or three generations in the war, I mean, there was so much trauma from home. These people didn't know how to communicate. Many of them there, they were so unfortunately broken that there
Yeah.
wasn't a safe place for them. So maybe the dinner tables weren't the friendly place. Like my dad was a military disciplinarian, so the dinner table wasn't necessarily safe. It was you ate and minded your own business, and but it wasn't a friendly place. Dinner tables at my neighbors were friendly. Dinner tables at my extended family were friendly. So I recognized the difference,
Okay.
and that's what I created. My first wife and I created with that. And we didn't do it consciously. I mean, her family was wonderful. Dinner tables was no matter what went on, the problems didn't come to the table. We brought ourselves to the table, and we did all kinds of celebration, birthdays, and that. So we didn't realize that how important it was for our family and our children to give them the foundation of who they are today. And it was always a safe place, and we had fun. So again, we didn't bring the problems to the table. Everything went aside. We came to the table to get together to eat and and have laughter and connection, and especially birthday parties. We had so much fun at birthday parties and celebration. And my extended family did the same. So it gave me the difference. That's something I really enjoy. And it's like I love potluck dinners. I love chatting with
Mm.
people over food because food is a great pacifier.
It is. I've been eating my feelings lately. I'm not ashamed either. I would do it again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love what you said. We have to think about the mindset that our parents were in when they were coming to the dinner table or not coming to the dinner table. And, you know, I guess you either go along with what they were doing or you create your own traditions from what you experienced as a child. So Normally, I ask questions surrounding women and how it affects women, but for this particular question, I want to know how it affects men because I want to break the barriers between communications between men and women. So, what are the common communication wounds that men carry from childhood, like being silenced, dismissed, or over responsible? What are those? And how do they show up and affect their current relationships as adults?
For many men, and I was in that framework too, we were not allowed to show emotions. We were not allowed to show pain. And personally, I said I grew up not knowing if I ever cried. I don't remember.
Oh,
So I think that was my dad in a sense, looking back, and I've had some people, energy workers, realize this some years back that. So I wasn't allowed to have that emotion. We ate it, and I had to ask my sister because my dinner table, I said, was strict, but it was also like I asked my sister. I remember being smacked upside the face when I was very young, and I said, "What were we getting hit for?" She said, "You weren't allowed to talk at the table." So that
really?
silence was very suffocating. And in that, it creates what a term called emotional isolation when you don't have that. And again, my dad was a hard rule guy. So, I mean, we were a farm. I worked a lot of hours being a farm kid, but there wasn't, it's a typical of mindset of the military. You knew everything you did wrong, nothing you did right. So you have that silence of you're not unable to connect, unable to communicate, unable to really voice your feelings. And then what the only feeling emotion you had was anger.
Right.
And for many men, they go up and it's very volatile. My anger, I was able to channel. I went to the gyms, worked out, and so it never came out in anything personal. I was able to channel it, but also, like I said, in my working life, I had a great time. People were good to me. I showed up, so they never knew my dark side, and it didn't. And I didn't bring it out in relationships. For many people, and my siblings, it came out in the relationships. It was very volatile, and there was alcohol and drugs involved. So people go into distractions because they don't know what to do with the pain. They don't know how to move from it. And many men never learn that space to have dialogue, never learn that space to have connection. They constantly disassociate themselves from their partners. They can't be comfortable around situations. They'll isolate, they'll disappear. And I've seen this in well-to-do families where I'd say the male spouse, it happens on both sides, will not participate in family events. They if they're there, they'll isolate themselves. And you think, this is a high-functioning, extremely intelligent adult, and yet they cannot engage in family dynamics. And the other family, the part of the woman's side of the family, is paralyzed around unless they know how to get this person some help. I'm going to say for you and myself, I was one I wanted more. I wanted more of my communication skills. I was so tired of not being able to speak. I mean, in school, I was so shy, it was paralyzing.
Hmm.
And so situations come up. I mean, when I started working for a company in 1986 in Honda and Allison, I was a farm kid. I'd come off the farm, very limited speaking, but it was a young company and I got involved. It was so young and fresh. I got involved in so many activities and speaking, and I was terrified, but I kept pushing myself. And because there was support, there was no judgment. And I went from speaking to 20 people to being a president of the recreation committee to speaking to 400 or 500. And don't tell me I was shaking like a leaf, but I every time I did it, I got better, but I continued to work on myself. I wanted more of myself. I was one of these people. I was a seeker, and I was going to either find it or die trying. So we don't, and we'll show the coach that we don't know how to let people connect to us. We don't know how to be tender. We're afraid to be vulnerable. So often we stay in this lane of activity, of distraction, sports, drugs, alcohol, that we never change those distractions. And so people become addicted to them. So, and around on partners just give up. It's been like that forever. So I can't do anything about it.
So, how can we change that? I mean, because yes, we understand that. I mean, I know some people may have social anxiety, and that's a whole separate issue. Um, but to take the man from isolating himself from family events, how do we include the men in the family events without destroying or tearing away who he is as a person? Because we want them to be included. We want, when we look at a family album, we want to see, well, hey, Jim was participating, there was Jim with the kids. How do we really break the barrier to have them be included in those things and still feel comfortable doing it?
So I'm going to give you two stories. It's my work is with one is with the woman's side, helping her flow of energy. So because we get so tangled in our energy, we're part of the problem. And I don't mean disrespect. I'll explain why. A lady known for a number of years back, and she was doing some biofield tuning, if you're familiar with that, as a healing modality. Yaline McCusic's the founder of that. So back in early 2015, 16, she was doing her own personal work on herself, and had struggling with her relationship with her husband, had married many years, and literally kept working on herself. And at one point, whatever shift in her energy field, something shifted, and suddenly her husband made a change, and he went from being resistant to being available. So, and again, I'm not putting where there's a blame on the partner. I'm just saying my work is we carry the energy of our relationships in our body.
Right.
When we shift that energy, it allows those relationships around us to change. So it's we can't say, go send, it isn't about, it's not like you bring a dog to the vet. Your work first, allowing the other person to then look for the facilitation, then working with them. So it's because we don't realize we're as much of the dynamics. I don't want to say problem, of the dynamics of the situation with our energy, because over time we get built up resistance and resentment and all kinds of disappointment. So that is part of the energy dynamics that is going on. So again, when I work with the willing partner in, whether we're using EFT or time sweeps to facilitate their energy, that allows more availability for the other people to then have their facilitation and their part, be able to take part in the process. So it's whoever's willing to step into the picture can be the facilitator for those around them as they work with their energy, doing the clearings. It sounds mystical, but I mean, two examples. When I was doing my work back in 2015 with EFT, working on a micromanaging boss, I just worked on my energy, and we had a different relationship. So
So you let
again,
him be who he was, and you just worked on yourself.
yeah, I just worked on myself, and then I worked with a gal going back to a family event in another part of the country with her husband, and because the mother-in-law was very whatever. So I worked on her, and that part of her mother-in-law didn't show up at the event. It was like she was so different because she shifted her energy, the lady I worked with. So again, I'm going to say again, we carry the energy of our relationships in our body. When we shift that energy, those relationships will change.
That makes way too much sense. It does. It explains a lot. It just like I know a few people that they do isolate, and it's not because they don't want to be there. Maybe they just don't know how to really manage that space.
And because we're trying to fit them into our framework. Someone else I worked with, but because of their partner, I won't say who is what they really got to this part of, they just had to let go and let the other person do what they were doing, and made themselves available. And they've had a shift, because again, they had expectations of what the other person was doing and how they should do it. And this is your energy too, we'll talk more blueprint. You have a structure of how people should act, behave, and say. And if they don't fit those systems, then there's conflict, right? So we can relax and make ourselves available to have their expression. Then we have more connection. But we're so entangled energy. We want them to fit into our little dynamics, and we're not making ourselves available to be more of an observer instead of what I call a refiner.
So what you're saying in essence is let the people do what they want. They're not hurting anyone. But then you got these people like, well, why is Jim not participating? Why is he so standoffish? And then now they feel like they need to be on this crusade to figure out Jim.
And we got to fix them. We're going to fix
Yeah,
Jim.
we got to figure them out, and we have to fix them, and we have to make them conform to what we want because we want everyone included.
Yeah.
And Jim's like, listen, I'm here. I'm here. Be thankful for that. I showed up, I contributed, I
Yeah.
talked to two people. Be
Yeah.
grateful.
And again, that could be his nature too. And we'll talk more about that when we talk through, with the bank code stuff after. That could be part of his nature too, not a huge socializer. My example earlier, this was an extreme example where someone just, this is many years ago, would not even come into the room, because there's parts of their personality, but then there's parts where people just don't feel, worthy and don't feel safe in a family dynamic, and they just won't. And so what happens is all your attention goes to the person who's not there. So it's trying to say, there's a fine line, but again, when we shift our energy, we allow the other people to be more of themselves, and we're more ready to receive them.
I have to take that in. I have to take that in. I'm the personality type that if you're at the house and there's other people at the house, you need to be present. You need to come down. You need to say hello. And I don't even care if you shimmy back up, unbeknownst to anyone. I just need you to just be involved in the thing that's happening. But maybe that's my takeover spirit. Maybe that's something I really need to work on.
Well, again, much of it can be done with good intent. You want people to participate. You want them to enjoy. You want them all. You want so much for them. And sometimes with our children, they're going, enough. I'm tired of trying to live to your expectations, because we're human beings. We're so conditioned to judge. We judge everything. We try and make ourselves look good for others.
I'm like, are you saying I'm judgy, Richard?
No, not at all. But I'm glad we're not close.
Oh my God. No.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm just laughing at what you're saying.
Well, again, because we have expectations. And a lot of expectations in families too are, well, we want our children to look good to others. We want them to behave. We have these things of how people should see us, and I'm going to go off the topic, but we don't know often how to be authentic and genuinely, compassionately authentic, instead of trying to look good for others, to be ourselves and just enjoy ourselves, enjoy people around us for who they are, not trying to be somebody. Because we're so conditioned to consensus and fitting in. It's like, oh my goodness.
I hear you.
Not my cup of tea. Sorry.
I hear you. So what do you think the biggest differences you see between how men and women communicate during conflict?
Women are very expressive. Plus you beautiful women, very, very expressive, and men don't know how to take it, because oftentimes they need to just vent. But what happens, we're so conditioned to take it personally, and I'm going to back it up, because the partners we pick in life are often related to the people we grew up with. So a man will marry someone like his mother, and if his mother was a very tough cookie, never mind all the labels, he's going to find a partner same, and a woman does the same. If a woman had a husband, if the daughter had a husband father who wasn't emotionally available, she's going to find a husband who wasn't emotionally available. And that's a lot of my work, helping people recognize their patterns of attraction. So in that sense, but when women are, upset, again, they're emotional, they're expressive, and again, we take it personally. Well, you're mad at me, so we start bringing up things in the past. Well, because this, and we don't know how to fight, and we don't know how to argue in the present. And it takes practice. It takes time. It takes practice, and it takes a commitment to not go in the gutter. I said to my now first wife, late wife, I will never swear to you, I will never call you names. And I made that commitment because, when you can't take back, you can't take those words back.
No.
So, but I didn't have the chance to have those intense dialogues. I didn't have the skill set. She was very intense on her side. So then what I was doing is writing notes down later. This is what I was trying to say. Because in the moment, my brain would just freeze.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's a big, we just, because often we can't, we get all tense, we can't communicate. So, and then with, my second marriage there many years later, she said, you have to stay in the room for these discussions. You can't leave. Because I had no way, I could only walk out. I didn't know how to have this discussion. So we learned to stay in a room and not face each other. I mean, often sat near each other, side by side. And for us now, we're having something. I said, these are just words. Let me express something. So it's not personal. We're able to have a dialogue. But what happens, it has a conflict where somebody has to be the winner, or somebody, and what happens is the conflict never changes, or the tension never changes. It just moves down the scale in time. But it's a repeated conflict over and over and over because we don't know what the root cause is.
Right.
And when we get to the root cause of that and whatever clearing it works, then we have an opportunity to have something greater in our lives. But it starts with me and first, that I can have more in me, and I can learn on the nuances of where I can communicate or respond before where I couldn't, because you can say, "Hang on, I'm not understanding. Why did you say that?" So, and
Okay.
tonality and voice inflection have so much impact in our lives. And especially if it reminds us of someone we grew up with. If the person we're married to is a mirror of somebody a parent that did the same, we're going to have the same reaction.
Yeah. You are really making things make sense in my world right now. You really are. It's making me think. My wheels are turning. So
Mhm.
how are we as women? How can we communicate tough conversations with our spouse without making them feel like we're attacking them or emasculating them or trying to control what they say? How do we really get over the hump to just have a tough conversation and just be open and authentic and not making the male feel like we're blaming them or like, we're trying to scold them like a school child? Like, we don't want any of that.
It takes practice and, some work with someone. I'm going to say that not to sell my service, but it does. It takes practice to have the frame and build the frame for it. So the frame is in sense of looking when you practice. How do I want to say this to my husband? When you want to set it up, saying, honey, I want to say something. So can I just express? I don't want your response, because oftentimes we're looking for a response. What you get is a reaction.
Okay.
So, and find a safe place, not we got to talk.
Oh, those are
Find a
some
place.
horrible words.
It is. It's right away that, like, boom, okay, now the mind's going into crazy, right? So, but it's practicing to say, and looking at yourself. I mean, talking with your, women friends, when I get angry, what am I saying? How do I think? What's my triggers? We don't recognize our triggers.
Mm-hmm.
But having the frame to say, can I say something to you? And I don't want a response. I just want to express. So where it's a safe place for them, not cornered. Whether it's somewhere that's neutral or wherever you find not facing. So you're saying, I just need 5 minutes. Let me express. So again, you can express your thoughts, your feelings a little bit, and not take the dump truck in. So because you're testing the nervous system. This is all nervous system regulation.
Right.
But and said don't look for response, because oftentimes we can't. I love to process. I'm a walker and a processor. So when something's going on, we'll talk, and I'll think, I'm going to go for a walk, and I do some walk, and I do my finger tapping to think things through. My wife she talks to herself. She dialogues. So it doesn't mean you're going to solve every issue, but you're going to allow yourself to have that expression in the sense of, or just let me vent. So maybe as you're driving, you're venting out the window. Sometimes
Yeah.
we just need to spit our guts, spit ourselves out. I teach people with the EFT, the Chevy Chase rant. So I teach them the tap and finger tapping, and I said, do this by yourself and say whatever comes to mind. Like curse it out, blab it out, because what it is, you're just processing your own energy.
Right.
Because oftentimes that's what we need. We build up energy. We have, situations at work, and then it just builds up, and it's not them. They could be the trigger. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes for my own regulation, and that's what I teach others, is to just go out and I mean, just curse it out. There's no filters. There's nobody going to come down straight. There's no lightning rod that's going to come strike you down. But I will guarantee you, when you do this, the way I teach it, you can be so flippin' mad you're spitting nails. And within about 30 minutes, and you do this for the first 10 minutes, you're going to have a completely, a much different outlook, because you've taken the lid off of your energy. And for many, and especially women, have never been able to really express their feelings.
Facts. That is
So,
that is a true facts,
yeah.
because we don't want to come off angry. We don't want to come off like we're your mother. We're not your mother.
Mhm.
But we want to be able to express ourselves without having to just having to go through like 7 filters
Mhm.
before we say what we really need to say.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be disrespectful to our partners, for sure. That's really why we're taking the time to go through the filters, is because we don't want to make anyone feel like we're attacking, or we're judging, or we're scolding, and we're trying to control you. But we have a thing that we don't like, and we want to convey it over to you, and we want you to have dialogue with us so that we can understand, okay, this is what we're dealing with. How do we get out of it so we can move forward? You know? So,
Key point there is when you're addressing a situation, that you're not coming at it from pushing shame or guilt on somebody. Because
mm,
sometimes in this expression it comes out that way. So what when I'm expressing, what is it? And this could be a prior conversation. This takes planning. This is, like I said, when you have to, like an athlete, you have to build up to this.
right.
Sometimes, so whether you leave notes or something, you write things down, and can I express it, and you read, so okay, I have time to digest it. There was a series on TV about that. I can't think of the name of it, but they used to have this, this 5 minutes of whatever. So, okay, so each one would just go, rapid fire stuff. And they weren't being vulgar, but it allowed them, it was interesting to see this, even though it was in a bit of a series, to see this dialogue happen. So, and the point is, we often, we want to be as objective as we can too, because it is personal, but we're not here to attack you. We want to express something that is upsetting us.
Right.
Yeah, but we grew up often with parents that were very harsh and very critical, and so they're going almost making sure we never do this again. And this isn't that's not in our relationship. It's a matter of being able to have that dialogue, and again, understand your own triggers.
Right. Right.
But again, the frame is, I'm going to go back to the frame is important. I just want to practice or say something for a couple things, and again, not the whole dump truck. There's a
Mm-hmm.
few things here, and please, I'm asking, looking for some clarity, and again, allowing their time for response. Because most men, when they get blasted on, will shut down. We don't know any other response. We don't have the training for it.
So that leads me into my next question. What are some of the common communication mistakes women make with men, especially when they feel unheard?
I think when we first had talked about this, called unacknowledged or unmet expectations, because we think they understand what we're talking about or how we feel. Like, and you should know where when you do this. And if we're not communicating the little things that irritate us, we don't know how they build up. The little
Mm-hmm.
things that we do, then sense of to our partner. Maybe we're sloppy around things. Maybe we do that. So or we believe the women will say, well, why don't you understand me? Again, we're not taught this in school. Communication should be the simplest thing we do, and it's the most confusing thing we do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've lost your question in my dialogue here.
No,
It's
no, I was asking, what are some common mistakes women make when communication, excuse me, What are some common communication mistakes women make with men, especially when they feel unheard?
Demanding it. Like, I know, I mean, you have every right to demand it, but a sense of if you haven't communicated before or really been effective at it, because often, again, I get this here too, but there's what women do a lot of times, but don't speak directly. They're walking by and they're speaking. They're talking from another room. Personal experience. You know, they're talking behind somebody's head. And we're, you know, because I've talked to other guys about this too, and I'm not demeaning any, I'm not trying to make anybody bad, but it's instead of coming up, saying something, you know, and just, and in a tonality that's not friendly, but again, the tonality and voice inflection are everything. When someone comes up with the edge, or the tonality, or the whatever, and it's like a knife, we're just gonna turn our back because we don't have any way to receive it. So it's learning to say something in a tone, and it's not trying to please or kiss somebody's butt, but it's saying, you know, this takes practice. Okay, I'm trying to say this. Could you please listen to this? But when you speak in different ways, and then because what we'll do is we'll just eventually, after a while, just tone out, okay, you're talking, but I'm not sure what it all is you're saying.
Oh,
We tone out.
really?
I do it too.
So you just, okay, so is this why men shut down in these conversations? Is because we're not effectively communicating in a way where they feel like they can understand what we're saying? Like we're not saying it correctly? Or is that what's
Well,
going
that
on?
or we feel judged. We're getting it in what I call snidely comments. You know, like an example of, say, and this, you send husband to the store to get some stuff, and I'm, you know, I don't find everything, and come back, what? You couldn't find it? You want, was it too, you know, I told you what it looked like, you know, or you're not doing something, so or you're not folding the towels right, you know, you're not folding the clothes right, you know, do things like that. So we're just like, screw it. You know, if you're gonna judge me and make snidely comments, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not listening to, I'm not gonna do it. So
Wow.
it's learning to respect each other and what our skills are and how to invite them. Like I said, especially in grocery stores, labels change, bottles change. I've been on my hands and knees looking for things down the shelves and coming back, you know, and not being able to find what I was looking for, a spice, right? So it's like, and again, my wife said something. I said, hang on. I said, I was looking. Please don't, because I grew up with a father who was constantly shaming you, constantly. So I just said, I'm not playing this game. You know what? Please understand. I'm doing my best, and you know. So yeah, okay. Because again, if I sent you to a tool store and gave you a description of a tool, would you know Would you know what you're looking for?
I probably would. My dad was a carpenter.
Okay, there you go.
He's a
So there
construction
you
worker,
go.
so I
But,
I probably would, or I would just Google it.
but if you're going to a grocery store, things change all the time. I take that example because we, you
Yeah.
know, food, but little things like that of how we bark at people and not communicate. You know, because my dad was like that, I made sure as a parent, and I didn't do it consciously, that when I was with my kids, I communicated how I wanted to be spoken to.
That makes sense.
And I think if you're looking at this frame, if you're as a woman talking to a man, would you listen to you?
Yeah.
You know, and record yourself. Would you listen to you
Yeah.
and say, how would I receive this if I was sitting there, and you know, whatever I'm doing, and often again, it's often in the sense where it seems like an opportunity moment. It's never set up. All of a sudden, it feels like an attack. You get in the car, slam the door, you know, and you say stuff. So suddenly, the person it's like they just
It's
start
already
driving,
turned off. Like, you know
turned
what?
it off.
You don't even sound right. Your face is not
Yeah,
looking right.
yeah,
I'm out.
yeah,
I'm out mentally. I'm here, I'm driving the car, but I am gone.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So
so
it's so much of this is in a way for couples to find tenderness,
yeah.
you know, and wherever you can find that sense of, and build that sense of safety. Because look at how you would, somebody said, how do you want to treat your family? You should treat them like strangers. He said, what do you mean? He said, you'll bark and bitch at your family, but a stranger walking in, you're going, hey, how's it going? Can I get you a cup of coffee? You'll ask a stranger questions when your kid comes home, and doesn't do something right. You're, well, what's wrong? Why didn't you do it? We're condemning. We're so used to criticizing and being critical of people of our lives, thinking we're helping them be better people, and what we're really doing is we're tearing them down.
Oh my goodness. And that's the last thing that you really want your spouse to feel is that you're tearing them down.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you're trying to get everything out that you want to say.
Mhm.
So I think this is where the crack the code personality test would probably help, because it would kind of help the both of you see where you're at. So tell us a little more about that, and then I'll bring up my test so we can see see how messed up I am.
Codebreaker, again, was designed initially by Sherry Tree. If you look her up, I mean,
Hmm.
it's famous, world famous organization. I'm just a consumer of the product. I'm not an affiliate or a salesman, but I will say it's helped me understand how myself, my wife, and then I want to be able to communicate with other people more effectively.
Right.
It's because, and what she said, there's four types, you can see my cards here, in a sense of how they are. These aren't in order. This is called the nurture. The nurture has 12 values on it. Relationships,
Okay.
community. I won't read them all, right? So, but these are all four cards, values for an action person, values for a blueprint. Your first code is blueprint. Values for knowledge. So when you look at these codes, and what this does in reality is explains why.
Hmm.
It gives you your values, it gives you your like and dislikes and that, but also in the sense of order of these four cards. So I mean, your first one was was blueprint, which is about rules. These are the people who are, police department, all kinds of attendants, anybody with rules, not accounting, but again, they're the baggage people that are, when you're running airlines, they're the systems people.
Hmm.
They're the people that in hospitals, organizations that know how everything runs, where it all is, and how they do it. These are, again, and I'm going to go, the next one is knowledge. These are the thinkers, the brainiacs.
Hmm.
So they all play a role of communication. These two can appear the most insensitive. They're not that they're not uncaring or kind, it's just not their nature per se of how they were. And depending on how they experienced childhood, how much of this code is available to them, because there's a scale here. But again, when people are in blueprints, we love loyalty, we love systems. Your first one is blueprint, organized. So your children can find you inflexible sometimes because you're a planner. You have, when you lay out your day, this is what it is. And so can we go here? No, it's not on my schedule. And
And
you're
then I have
looking
to
to
regroup.
regroup because it puts you off kilter. You're like, oh, I'm 20 minutes behind now. Like now you're upset.
Yeah.
So lucky for you, well, I'd say lucky, I take that. Nurturing is your next one, right? See, there is that sense of kindness and compassion. There's blueprints, which is strong, but strong value based.
Hmm.
Organization, which I mean, you guys are great organizers, great system people, all kinds of stuff like that. Values and relationship people are nurturing people are the caregivers. They're the people that are the people pleasers. Things like that. So again, but they're incredibly nurturing, kind, but they tend to be overgiving. And we have a society that says you never say no, keep helping till it's your last, till your last breath. Your stress code for you, and third one is knowledge. So when things go wrong or aren't so, you go into, I want information. I'm not moving till I understand this.
That is
Knowledge
so
people are your
true.
brainiacs. They're your designers. They're your aircraft engine builders. They're your or engine, aircraft builders. These are your computer people. Incredibly smart, love gadgets and everything else. But again, they can get lost in their head, and they have to be right at a high level. So you're not going to win an argument. They'll fight till the last breath that they're right. So what it feels like is they're talking at you. Like, what's wrong? But when they're adamant about something, so again, if a lady I spoke about earlier, she's a high action person, and her son was knowledge, and said for the first 18 years of his life, she could never connect because she was lovey-dovey, all affection. And he's like, don't touch me, get away from me. So, and this happens in relationships. We don't understand why are you not affection? Why can't I do these things? So how these, and action are salespeople, they're beautiful people, but they're the fly by the seat of your pants people. Very flamboyant, very showy. So again, they're the fun people at the parties. You go to the party, it's going to be at some parties, you're going to see the knowledge people behind the buffet snacking by themselves, and potentially maybe chatting with a blueprint.
Mm.
So as we talked earlier, they're going to people maybe outside, staying outside, unless there's something comfortable for them. There's a dialogue they want to be part of. Again, these guys love information like that. Nurturing, they're running around seeing, is everybody okay? You guys okay? Can I get you something? So and again, what the big part of this when we have conflict, it's not personal, it's personality, it's part of their expression, it's their automatic expression. So in this again, free PDF, there's your likes, there's your dislikes, there's all the codes, so you understand yourself better. And then you look around at your family and you say, oh, now I understand, why my son acts this. Well, now I understand why my partner acts this way.
Mm-hmm.
So we can appear instant. So it's not just how, it's the why. But so again, the values are there, the reasons are there, and there's a dark side to these codes too. Like you said, with childhood upbringing, all
Yeah.
these have a dark side. Our side, nurturing can turn nasty. Blueprints and knowledge turn inward. They shut down. They go into their own internal systems. Action just is very chaotic. They're out doing all kinds of crazy stuff, like off the chart. So and there's 24 combinations of these, so there's no right or wrong, but it does help you understand yourself, your others, again, how you receive communication. If you're
Right.
a blueprint and a sense and an action person comes running in at you and starts blasting, you're like, what are you talking about? I'm not even prepared. I don't have any preparation for this conversation.
Yeah. I didn't have it in my schedule.
Yeah,
And then I have to pivot. I have to decide, okay, I'm going to need to pivot. I need to
yeah, yeah.
really get to the next side. So the structure, so mine is BNKA, and I'm a blueprint and nurturer first. And it kind of speaks volumes that those are the first two that comes up for me, because you are actually true. Everything you said about those two things is actually me. I am a nurturer. I was just telling someone the other day, I think I give people so many chances to just get it right, that to the detriment of me, because I want them to get it right. I want to give them the benefit of a doubt. Everyone's human. I hide behind those phrases. Everyone's human. We all make mistakes. But at the same time, I need to just move on from it. And then the knowledge, yes, I need to know who, what, when, where, and why. And I will not be moved until I can figure out why this is happening. And that also could be a bad thing for me.
Again, because you did not know this. Again, we're not. There's so many personality tests out there. I just gave this to a friend of mine the other night in Australia, and she said this so much identified her, and she's taken multiple personality tests. So again, what are you trying to do? What is it? What's in your system that's available that you can do? Because again, from past, say, family dynamics, a blueprint or knowledge, I always say the difference between decision and choices. If we've been faulted for decisions, well, every time you did it, you screwed up. So what are you going to do? Nothing.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything. So you don't know, because we've been so systemized in society that, well, if you fail and make all these failures, you don't want to be a loser. So just sit on your TV and eat potato chips. So so we understand why sometimes we're so afraid to make a risk, depending on past mistakes and past behaviors, past experiences, and what were we not missing? Like I said, with you don't move or buy a product until you understand completely what it is you're purchasing. An action will go out and buy a car on a credit card,
Yeah.
and you're like, you're crazy. So it's understanding where we are again, and what are our partners, and a lot of this too is miscommunication in how we show affection for each other. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles we have. What are you trying to say to me? Because blueprints and nurture will have to put some timers in their phone. I'll send a message to my wife, send a message to my partner and say, hey, how's it going?
Right.
So you're showing that you care, but they may have to put it into a system. And it doesn't mean they don't care. It's just not part of their process structure.
Right. Well, I definitely get that. I definitely get that. You are dropping some nuggets right now. I'm going to sit with myself after we wrap up because this is making way too much sense, and I'm going to really dig into my code a little bit more because, and I probably might make the folks in my family take this too because it definitely would help people understand a lot. It would probably make all the difference. So as we close, I always like the women to learn a lesson from, for the men. So fellas, I got you. How can women move from communicating out of fear of abandonment to communicating from confidence when they're trying to get an issue out with their partner?
One is the emotional regulation, because I mean that is emotional. Even you can see logic in there, but as soon as the tension is up, there's a fear. So I said finding ways, and I have tools for that as well, that you can regulate yourself. Very on your own. That you can look at yourself in these ways, but start to calm your body down. I always say you can't outthink your emotions. I know they talk about emotional intelligence, but when that spike comes up, you're overwhelmed with that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So again, tools I can teach you, like little simple stuff. And it's not always about learning what EFT is, but ways to do simple regulations. Little holds like that to start to calm your system down. So, and this is something big. I don't want to. I want to make this like an athlete your go-to. This one here, like I said, when you're looking at my fear of abandonment and bring up scenarios for that, it'll help you to process that, because we've been told to, not told, we've been taught to ignore our emotions and feelings and just distract or smother. And one of my recent posts was, what you can't face you'll never move from, because what it creates is patterns of avoidance. So when you look at that and realize I do have this fear of abandonment, so what am I? And so I'm avoiding it. If I talk to somebody or find these tools to work in my regulation, and then start to look at how do I want to dialogue with this person. And I mean, there's a caution to say with the AI, there's all kinds of ways you can find ways to start a discussion, chat
Mm-hmm.
GPT, something like that. I want to have a discussion with my partner about this. It's not number one, it is not your therapist, but it can give you ways to say something that you can't normally say,
Right.
outside your normal dialogue. So again, when you can regulate yourself too, so you're not triggered and you're not being repulsed because it just starts the same dynamic. Regulation, information, planning, preparation, and discussion. Okay, and start to say, can we and build into this? But also, when you clear your energies, even through your own personal regulation, you're opening up the door for more of that availability from your partner. And you're not responsible for them, but our energy fields do connect, they do contrast, they do interact.
Okay.
So the calmer I am as a person, the more I'm going to make that available energy for my partner.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for that. I really
And
like that.
when you're going into discussions, the simple phrase is barriers down, barriers down, barriers down. You're really just lowering the barriers. And I forgot one in there, as you can say when this energy's up, just two words: open, please.
Mm.
You're opening energy up. Open, please. Open, please. May sound like nothing, but you're allowing your system to process what the unconscious is there.
Right. Okay. I got that. I'm taking this all in, Richard. I'm
Thank
taking
you.
it all in. So where can our listeners connect with you and take the crack your code personality test for themselves?
I can put it in the chat. I've got a link for that as well that I can throw in the chat here if that's available, or afterwards. But I can put a link for myself if you want to schedule something, and a link to crack your code. We can drop that in there.
Okay. Is this the one or
That's my website, but I mean, and I
okay,
can.
so is it on here as well?
No, it's not on there actually. I
Okay,
have to.
drop it in the chat real quick and then I'll roll it across the screen. So I really learned so much from this conversation today. Just rolling it back, how to really start the conversation, how to really understand that um, men and women are wired differently, or we do communicate differently. And the way we approach conversations in our relationships can make or break if we're really going to um, be heard or not. And I think that um, I think that cracking the code for ourselves would definitely be beneficial for us to really take that. Maybe both us and our partners would be able to take that together and then really look at the results together to see where we can maybe improve our communication with each other. Does that make sense?
And in there, like I said, with I get a notification, I'll send you an email with the code attached to it. You can certainly reach out to me from that email if you want some more further discussion. Happy to be part of that discussion. I did this for a family. They all cracked their code. So I was able to, and I used the AI part to help me give them some feedback. So I was able to read that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives them some, because what you say oftentimes is just goes in one ear because it's such a different dialogue.
Right.
But when I can give them information that's on a page, they get a chance to read through it and go back and read through it again, perhaps. And then, like anything, it takes me. I go back and I keep. I'm a reader. I love to read things through, and then each time we read it, we pick up a little more. But when you
Right.
can learn about yourself, I think this is the most important thing of who you are and how you function. That opens a door for others to learn about themselves too.
That's true. That's true. Well, thank you so much, Richard. I really appreciate you coming on and really breaking this all down for us, for sharing your insight and wisdom. I truly appreciate you because you have really opened my mind to my communication style. And I'm sure all our listeners that are listening, they would be able to really dig into what they need to improve on, and tweak so that they are having really great communication with their partners because we want to stay on the same page. We definitely want to be on the same page in the same book, in the same chapter. And we definitely want to be able to teach this to our children as well. We want to just spread the word on we've cracked our code. Let's help you crack yours too. Let's because what we really want essentially is mutual understanding. And so cracking each other's codes, would be able to say, this is what they're into. So let me try to steer my conversation this way so that they would be able to understand where I'm coming from without feeling attacked or without feeling like, judged, and things of that nature.
And again, we've got so much access to AI. We can put the values into the chat and say, "Can you help me make some, sentences of this so I can have this conversation, or at least send them a note or a text that is relatable to them."
Yes. Yes, I agree. I agree. Well, thanks again, Richard.
Thank
And my sisters and my brothers that are listening, remember, you deserve to be heard, understood, and loved without having to shrink yourself. And the healing how we communicate changes everything. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in to
Appreciate
Save
it.
Our Sisters Unplugged. If you have not subscribed to the channel, get subscribed, child, so you are abreast of when I drop new episodes and when we go live. If you have any further questions for Richard, please drop them in the comments. I will get them to him. He will answer back, and then I can drop them back into you. And that's how we'll roll it. So we'll talk soon.
Thank
Peace and
you.
blessings. Oh, you're welcome.